Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It is time to once again get into leak season. Now, when it comes to leak season, this usually starts a few weeks out from the actual kind of update dev blogs that turn up. And also, we are doing the 12-hour streams for the Twitch drop. So I thought we'd kind of marry the two things together and have a look. Now, remember, when it comes to these leak lists, nothing is confirmed. It's probably all fake, especially when it comes to a lot of this one, because if you actually have a look at it, many of the vehicles talked about it are also ones which have passed the devs a few weeks, or the last few months, sorry. So turns out it's quite easy to track these things. But it's kind of nice looking at new vehicles. It's kind of nice having a bit of fun. So in this video, we will have a look at the stuff from America, from Germany, and also Russia, which will be quite enjoyable. So let's get started and have a look at what's on this list. For America, oh, by the way, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe, like the video, come over to the Twitch streams because over the next few days, we're going to be doing some Twitch drops. You can get some free stuff, all that good stuff. So all of that as we go around. So let's get going. First of all, LAV25. It's pretty much what it says on the tin. 8-wheel chassis. We have the LAVAD, which is already in the game, the Levad. The LAV25 is basically it, but more of kind of like, I suppose, the, would you class as APC variant or kind of armored fighting vehicle variant. It just has the 25mm. So it's one which I'm kind of very surprised we haven't seen in the game because, yeah, it's probably the most known one, which is not around. So we've talked about this one many times. The next one is the Busk, or the M3A3 Busk. As you can see, it's the chunky boy Bradley. This one has enhanced protection, which is usually kind of what happens with these Bradleys, and also what happens with the Abrams, if you have a look like the Seps and things like that. So basically, the Busk package is kind of like an urban survival kit. It's designed to be able to stop most chemical munitions with additional ERA, and also some other systems to try and basically help it survive. But when it comes to the actual vehicle itself, there wouldn't actually be that much difference between it and the standard one. It would just be a lot more tanky in terms of dealing with kind of more standard chemical munitions, maybe some cast stuff, but really shouldn't be a huge difference. I don't think there was any upgrade when it came to the firepower or when it came to like the missiles or the engine. It's just heavier because it has the extra armor. Might be wrong about that. We have once again covered it in the past and we went into more detail with it, so you can kind of have a look for videos there. The next one is really fun. I hope this one actually makes it in because it's one of those which I think people would really enjoy. This is the M551, the Sheridan, but this is the OP4 Sheridan. So basically, if you don't know, when it comes to war games or when it comes to like training, one of the things that America does, and also a lot of other nations, is they create vehicles that kind of are supposed to symbolize what the enemy looks like using their own vehicles. So we have the M1 KVT, right? The M1 KVT is based off of, I believe it's an M1A1, which was kitted out for the OP4 or opposing forces setup. This is a Sheridan, which has been set up to kind of look like a Soviet or Chinese vehicle, and it looks completely ridiculous. But generally, when it comes to the game, I think it would actually be kind of cool if they added these things. So maybe in the future, we can have a look and see these types of vehicles. It would functionally be the same as kind of like the standard Sheridan, but also at the same time would be kind of fun because of obviously how it looks. The next vehicle, once again for America, F1046. F1046, that's one way of saying it. It's the F106. This is the Delta Dart, and it's part of the, I suppose you class them as the F1 series, or you know, the ones which we just haven't seen. Stuff like the Voodoo, for example, which were designed to be very fast, very kind of quick off the ground interceptors to be able to deal with these like heavy strategic bombers that they were worried about were coming in from other places such as Russia. And the Delta Dart was basically designed in that way too. It had a massive engine, the J25P17. It also at the same time has a gun, or at least some versions of it had a gun. It had the Vulcan, which would mean it would actually work in the game. And the main thing that it would also have on top of that, which is why it wouldn't really work in the game, is it used some very weird weaponry. So it either used the Falcons, which we actually have kind of a weird version of it on one of the Swiss vehicles right now, but they don't really fit the game very well, or the main armament that it was designed to carry, which definitely wouldn't fit in the game, is the Genie, the nuclear armed rocket. So what you would do is if there was like a big kind of cluster of Russian bombers together, what you do is fire this rocket into the middle of them, and then the idea would be you'd have a nuclear strike in the air to be able to annihilate them. So yeah, this would be a fast supersonic Mach 2 interceptor that also would have pretty limited weapons, but at the same time would kind of fit in the game depending on what variant you put in. Because once again, just like a lot of these American vehicles, there's a bunch of different variants with a bunch of different setups. So hopefully we see that at some point. Talking about fun vehicles, XP72. We actually covered this, I think, maybe last week or a month ago. This is kind of the successor to the P47. So you know how you had the P47, which, you know, known as, I think, the Jug. It was a very large vehicle, huge engine, massive amount of firepower, generally just very good at what it did as a long-range kind of support vehicle. The XP72 took that, added a bigger engine, and also basically made it way more powerful than the P47. Unfortunately, this vehicle didn't really do anything because of the fact that they were moving into the jet age. But it's also just a marvel of engineering if you've ever seen the engine that they actually put into this thing. It is a beautiful piece of work, just like a lot of them are, to be honest. So it's well worth having a look into. Then we have a weird one. So this little thing. So this is, I believe, a H13. I might be wrong about that, but it's the CU. I don't understand why this one's here. From my knowledge, this vehicle was just kind of used as like a transport recon, you know, kind of medevac type of vehicle. I don't think it ever had any guns or missiles on it. I think it maybe have had a 30 cal that you could attach to it, but it's like one of those which would be super small, super light, super nimble, but also wouldn't have any weaponry. So I'm not entirely sure how that would fit in. But also we have the Northampton, which we talked about more recently when it came to the past of the devs. As I said, there's most of these are from the last few months, so obviously whoever's making these lists isn't putting in a lot of effort. This was a command ship that was made. Basically, it was a cruiser that was built during kind of like the end of the war. Then they didn't really need it, so they converted it into a command ship, and that's kind of how it stayed for a long time and kept it into service. So kind of a cool vehicle, has a bunch of 5-inch guns on it, depending on which variant you look at though, because there's a bunch of variants with different setups, because there was a lot of the room of the cruiser that was made for kind of the people who were commanding on it. So there wasn't really a need for a huge amount of guns. So it's going to be a big platform, but not really able to do quite a lot on it. But it's kind of cool to see. So that's the American stuff, right? Now, the Russian stuff, we start off with the BTR-82AT. This is just basically just a modernized BTR-80. You know, obviously the 80 to the 82. I get that they're separate vehicles, but obviously, like, the 82 is based off of the 80 that we have in the game. You know, they look very similar, both 8-wheeled, similar chassis. But the 82 AT is a very interesting one because of the weaponry set and also the optics it has on it. So depending on which one you look at, they have access to the, I think it's the 2A70 or the 2A72 30mm, which is the same one you find on the BMP, which can be very, very good. And then also it has access to cornets. So this thing would be a lot better at being able to engage targets than the standard BTR-80 that we have in the game, which basically just has the Donkey 30, which, you know, bobs up and down all over the place. So this would be kind of cool to see. Kind of surprised we haven't seen more of these. Kind of surprised we haven't seen more of the BTR series in general, since there are so many of them that Russia made in many different things. And then we just have this little boy. No idea what's going on with this one. No idea why this is here. Probably because it's a meme. This is a BA-64, which is a 1930s kind of little armored car, four-wheeled, no engine. The most this thing got armed, by the way, was I think they tried a 37mm on it. There was also a 12.7mm version, but this would basically just be like a rank 1 AA silly vehicle that you go around with. Wouldn't be very useful, but once again, from the 30s. And then you have this one. This one isn't actually on the list, but I wanted to show you it because it looks really funny. Somebody made a digital version of a modernized BA-64. So this basically has, as you can see, the BTR turret and also an ATGM on top. So thought that would be kind of funny if War Thunder ever decided to go fake. Next one. This is the BMP 1AM. So what this vehicle is, as you may be able to tell, is it's a BMP with what looks like the BTR turret on the top of it. So basically, once again, another Russian Frankenstein design. This one would actually make a lot of sense in War Thunder. Kind of surprised that we haven't seen this, just because the assets are there, so they could just kind of plonk it together. But yeah, it's just another one of those weird Russian things where they're like, well, we have this here, and, you know, we have that there, might as well put them together. A lot of videos from like the invasion of Ukraine have shown a lot of these kind of Frankenstein vehicles. There's some MT-LBs which also have this turret, and also other ones such as the dual 25mm naval gun, which has been sat on it, which I suppose is probably used for suppressing areas. But yeah, the BMP-1AM is here. You also have the book. This is the M3 version. We've talked about this before. There's not really much to go into with it. It's basically a vehicle which is, you know, very much on par with a lot of the other missile launchers that they added at the height of the game. So it's multi-SAM system setup. So yeah, you have a radar setup, and then you have the launcher. This is kind of the launcher version. So we'll have to see how that goes. You also have this. This is the Verney. The Verney is a trophy ship. Basically, Japan had it, and then Japan lost the war, so they had to give a bunch of stuff to the guys that they lost to, such as Russia. Russia ended up getting the Verney, but if I remember, the Japanese basically dismantled all of its weaponry before it was sent over. So not entirely sure what it would have on it, but basically that would be kind of fun to see. It wouldn't have, I don't think, the Japanese weaponry on it. I think it would have some weird kind of Russian weaponry on it, so maybe that would turn up. And then we have a Weasel. So this is the Weasel 2 RMK30. So have you ever wanted a Weasel with access to a 30mm recoilless autocannon? Well, here you are. This is basically what it is. So this would be kind of an upgrade of the standard Weasel 1 that we have with the Rheinmetall 20mm. It would just be a 30mm, and it looks completely ridiculous. So I'm all for it. We do actually have the Weasel 2 chassis in the game. It's the Ocelot, whereas the other two Weasels, I believe, are based on the Weasel 1. So it would be kind of cool to get another version of it in there. We also have the Marder 2. Now, it's super surprising to me that we don't have the Marder 2 in the game. Basically, this is just an upgraded Marder 1. It was kind of the stopgap between the Marder 1 and then the Puma. It did have several issues with it, which is probably why you don't hear as much about it. But as you can see, it has the autocannon. It has a very similar chassis to the Marder 1, slightly different though. You can see that it's like slightly raised here and like moved around in the place. But basically this would just be another autocannon IFV that would be around like 8090, which is where all of these types of things seem to go. Then you have the T54 AMZ. Now this is slightly different from a standard T54. They're really, I mean, you can have a look at it and you can probably see like slight differences between them. But the fact is this is a GDR modernized version of the T54. So this isn't something that is just another kind of Russian one. It is something that technically could go into the German tech tree as an East German T54 and be different compared to what is there. So the idea of this vehicle is they would add a bunch of different stuff to it, basically just improving like the optics on it and giving it a few more systems. Didn't really go anywhere. So yeah, it's just another one of those additions which would be slightly different than the norm. And then of course, talking about different from the norm and talking about weird upgrades, you have the Leopard 1A6 VT2. This is very similar. Well, very similar is probably not the right word, but you know how we have the L44 in the game, the Leopard A1A1 L44? Well, this was basically that. Like, it has the 120mm Rheinmetall, it has some additional armor on the turrets. You can see that the chassis looks slightly different, but it has like the same engine. It's based off the Leopard 1. It's basically just another kind of proposal to see if they could upgrade the Leopard 1 to bring it the weaponry of the Leopard 2 standard and also add some armor to it. So it is slightly different from the L44 in that way, but the 1A6 still has the 120mm gun, still has the Leopard 1 chassis, and has a few things on the back. So you can see here, it would actually be kind of cool to have. This thing was tested, everything went well with it. The problem it had was the same problem that all of these things had. The Leopard 2 existed. So unless like you don't have enough money, but Germany at the time did have enough money, there was no real reason to upgrade these things. It just made sense to build Leopard 2s. So they ended up buying, not buying, but building Leopard 2s. So yeah, kind of funny. But this one's pretty cool. Some people ask me, as always, when it comes to this list, do I think this is real? No, there's too many vehicles. Like it's way too big. This is three nations, right? There are a bunch of other nations to talk about too here, which I'll do in a separate video. But yeah, there's no way it is. This is a wish list, I think is probably the way to put it. But also it is kind of fun talking about wish lists. So as always, look after yourselves, peace be with you, and I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.